Hello everyone, my name is CJ, and here today we have a teacher with us.
My name is Steve. Hello.
So in the last episode, we have talked about Steven's background a little bit, right?
Right.
Can I say that you were from the States? Because you said that
Yes.
you were actually born in Taipei.
Right.
But for the majority of your life,
I grew up.
you stayed in
in
America.
Canada and
and America, in North America.
Right.
So I think that if you have ever taken Steve's class before, you will probably understand that he has like somehow we call it like a neutral, perfect Northern American accent.
Wow. A lot of compliments there.
What do you think? Have you ever received any compliments or like
Yes.
saying about your accents, like the way you speak English?
Honestly, a lot of students told me they like the way.
Okay.
They like the way I speak. They like my accent.
Maybe they like to learn how to speak like that.
That's correct. Because they feel like it's very stereotypically American accent. They feel like that's the accent that in their mind is what they think it is.
Okay.
Or speaking English is like that.
Sometimes I feel like it's difficult to tell the students like how big America is.
Yes.
Because like Taiwan is not even as big as one state, you know,
Right.
maybe larger than Hawaii. If we compare to other states in America, like because this is my idea, like within Taiwan, we already have like quite many different variations of Chinese dialects. So we can probably imagine like how many variations of American accents there could be in the United States, right? So today I do want to ask Steven to share some of his past experience with us, like when he grew up, what kind of ways of using English has he exposed to, and did you grow up in a Asian community,
Yes.
or was it like a more mixed
I grew up
environment?
mostly in an Asian community, and most of my neighbors, they were Asian. And I guess my parents definitely enjoyed that part, right? For them, it's it's the same as living in Taiwan, right? People speak Chinese and all that. Right?
That is one issue, right? So if you want to improve your English and you throw yourself abroad, then probably you don't want to mingle with
No,
just
not in the Asian community.
your Asian community. You want to blend in.
Correct.
Did you do that, or was it only does that only happen in school? Maybe.
I felt like for me, I never had an issue fitting in. And I think that has to stem with learning English for me when I was in kindergarten. Believe it or not, when I was in kindergarten, I couldn't speak English at all. I was basically speaking Chinese all the time.
To English users?
Yes, that's correct. And, my teacher, she helped me a lot. I still remember her name, Mrs. Stoon. Mrs. Stoon, if you're out there, thank you. But she really...
You can share this video to her if she's still there.
Yes, she really helped me a lot. She mentioned to me that learning English is necessary for me as a survival type of thing. And she mentioned to me that, you need to speak English in this country.
If you want to survive in this country.
Yes. And so she stressed the importance of that. But learning English for me was very difficult, as my parents, we speak Chinese all the time.
Did your parents give you any sort of supports?
For English, well, they don't really know English, so they couldn't really give me the support that I needed at that time. That's why they sent me to the English kindergarten, hoping that I can take some notes and probably assimilate into that environment, which I did. And, my kindergarten teacher helped me a lot. I mean, she basically helped me to improve my English dramatically. And the way she did it was she literally forbid me from speaking Chinese. like I said before in the previous episode, it's an all English environment. There's no Chinese there. You're forced to speak English, whether you like it or not. We begin from vocabulary words. And then after vocabulary words, it goes from that into sentences. And then part sentences, like generalized sentences, to more longer or specialized sentences that way.
Perhaps we can give our viewers a challenge right now, right here. If you want to improve your English, starting today, speak no Chinese. to your colleagues, to your employer, to your friends, to your family.
That's right. I would totally agree.
The fastest way to improve your communication skills, I don't know.
Yes, it's to kind of immerse yourself, right? Yeah. I mean, that is for all the students I say that is learning English right now, is to use English as much as you can. Immerse yourself in English, not just speak it, but understand it. Like listen to the music, watch the English movies, try to maybe get into the culture, right? And I think it helps you to understand because it gives you more of a background of where to go.
I think that understanding the background or the culture behind the language is quite important. Yeah. And earlier we were talking about the way you speak English, perhaps is at least perceived by the students is the ideal or the iconic American way. Right. Was it also learned from that kindergarten teacher?
Yes, it was also.
Even though we knew each other for quite a while, so I know that where you're from. But would you like to introduce or maybe briefly describe the place where you grew up in the States a little bit? Which states and what kind of people, the population, the demographic, and how do they speak English?
Right. Well, as many of you know from the previous episode, I talked about growing up in Southern California. I still remember it clear to this day. Live in the city of Walnut, Asian community generally. Yes, city of Walnut.
Walnut?
Yes, the nut, Walnut.
The walnut.
Yeah, the city of Walnut, Asian community. The high school I went to, mostly Asians. I guess the Asian were actually the majority in the high school. So I never really had a problem fitting in. That issue never occurred, but I know for other teachers and also for other people who went abroad and other students as well, especially if you go, for example, to Texas, where the majority is not Asian, right? Then you may have the issues of, I wouldn't say fitting in, but you might feel a cultural shock, for sure.
Especially if you learn the English the way we do in Taiwan, or maybe the way that you do using English. If you visit Texas or southern states like Alabama.
That's right.
I think that you are going to face a lot of issues.
I would suggest so.
Earlier, before we start recording, we were joking about the cowboy English.
Right, the whole macho masculinity type of
because
English.
I have never been to the States personally, so I do want to know a bit more. Like, would you like to share a bit of your own experience if you have ever met people like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that I ever went to those states and lived there. I have been to Alabama and I have been to Tennessee, those states. I've noticed that the people that were over there, I mean, it's not really only the way they talk English, it's the way they carry themselves when they talk to English, when they speak English, right? It's a very confident, in your face. It's very direct.
Even though it's grammatically incorrect.
Yes. And also, for some people, they may deem it aggressive.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, because they use a lot of words such as you, or they may say, you there, right? Just like that, It's very, you there. And then it's like, what you looking at, right? Something like that, And
even though they speak like that, but perhaps they were trying to be friendly.
Yes, they could very well be friendly. I mean, it wasn't hostile. Yeah, it wasn't hostile or anything. But for certain people who are not used to that type of culture, they may think that maybe they're trying to do something or instigate like a fight or something like that.
I think this is the interesting part. Maybe that later come after we have acquired the basic of the language that you are about to experience the diversity and a lot of differences in between cultures, right? So earlier we were joking, also discussing we have quite many different nationalities among our teachers, right? We have some teachers that are from New Zealand, there are some people from Australia, and there are some people from the UK, perhaps from Canada as well. Right. And maybe they carry themselves, like you said, differently, even though we are all using the same language, right? And if you only understand one way of using English, perhaps it is going to be a bit difficult for you to interact with those people. And we were discussing how can we make ourselves understood and how can we understand these people that are using English differently from our ways. And what would you suggest to students or maybe to any English learners? Like,
that's a really good question. It's not really a question
we didn't really think about.
that I really didn't think about. I guess if I had to really give a pointer, I would say that, you know, it's okay to not be able to understand the accent per se, but like you can try to at least in my opinion, I think it will be okay to ask them. Like if you really don't know what they're saying, it's okay to ask them and just, you know, tell them, hey, you know, like I'm not familiar with this accent or I'm not familiar with the culture around here. Could you explain to me like what you just said? Or I wouldn't really think it's rude to that. I feel like it would be more rude to pretend that you know.
I think that is quite a positive mindset.
Yes.
When I was studying back in Scotland, Scottish people, they are very aware that they have strong accents.
Very strong.
It is okay for you to just ask.
I think it is.
What do you mean? Could you say that again? And they will repeat the same sentence in the same accent again, and you still don't understand.
Yes.
But they would still do the kind gesture to repeat themselves for you.
Right.
I don't know whether it is the same thing in the States. Like, do people get offended when you try to clarify their meaning? Like, I don't understand your accent.
I don't personally for me, I guess at least in my opinion, I haven't experienced anything like that before. I think it really depends on the people that you're talking to, but it also depends on the way that you say it to them. Right. So, of course, obviously, you say it in a way that is courteous. Yeah, something like that. That would be a little bit impolite. But if you say it something such
as... The Taiwanese way, right? Whenever we're confused, we're just,
Yeah, you'd be like, huh? Well, like, what was that? You know, like, yeah, we don't want to do something like that. We want to kind of kick things down, reduce it down a notch. We don't want to make it too aggressive there. We just want to, you know, be... simple,
be curious, maybe
curious, be courteous. Just say, I don't really understand that. I would like to understand more about what you just mentioned, and that's it. It's really, I don't really think it has to be complicated for something like that.
I still vividly remember when we were studying abroad. I had a friend or classmate who is a African American girl. Okay, and she speaks like lightning fast.
Yes, and Spitfire.
There are a lot of slangs that she used that I just don't get.
That's right.
And because I never grew up in that environment,
sure.
And I don't know the language that she would use within her community.
Right.
So that is the second thing that I want to bring up. Like for English learners, right? Once you have acquired all the basics, you are going to meet different people from different places and also from different races.
Right.
Because maybe within the Asian community, we were quite comfortable. This is the way we speak, right? So interacting with like an Asian American is not going to be too big of a challenge.
Sure.
But America, as we know, right? So there are so many different ethnicities.
Right.
And perhaps for like maybe Puerto Ricans, like for Mexican community, for Latino communities, and maybe for European communities, they have their own ways of speaking and their own dialects and their slangs, right? So do you have any like interesting experience or encounters when back in the States?
I sure did. Not a lot, to be honest. But like, I guess maybe when I was working in California, the company I was working for, there were some people who had an Indian accent. Very
that
strong.
Is also a challenging one.
Very strong. And but there was also people that were from China, and obviously their accents are still kind of different than Taiwanese accent. Just based on speaking alone. So, of course, the way they speak English is also quite different. They tend to really dramatize the vowels or certain words, right? So, you know, for example, if regularly you say, you know, like hello or hi, right? They may say, they may kind of emphasize more on the hey or hi, you know, kind of like that. But I don't think that's due to the culture or anything. I think that's really more due to the way they say it, like daily. Like the way they say Chinese is very direct. It's very like, just kind of, I wouldn't, it's more like as a matter of fact type of way. So it translates into the way they speak English.
I think that our viewers can understand like the way Taiwanese people speak Chinese is completely different from mainlanders, right?
Yes,
So their Chinese somehow stress stronger.
Very strong, yeah.
So perhaps the stressing habits will be carried into speaking English as well.
That's right.
So, and for us, perhaps we speak Chinese in a softer way.
Yeah.
So
That's
maybe
definitely.
we will be more comfortable speaking English in a softer way as well. I guess. Right?
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
but India is a huge ass country as well.
Very huge.
I couldn't distinguish the accents of them using English from Bangladesh
Oh, yes.
and Pakistani.
No, it's
residents.
impossible.
Even though seemingly they are all South Asians.
Right.
But the way that they speak English kind of different, I feel.
There's still like subtle differences, but yeah, I honestly, if you ask me, I wouldn't be able to tell. It's too similar for me, but it's too similar the way they say it. But I know for them, amongst them, they may pick up certain subtleties, right, in that.
So, before we started this recording, even though we had sort of come to a conclusion, but what do you think English learners could do if they were still not that mature in English, but they had to interact or communicate with a person who has a strong accent, or the way that they use English is just completely different from what they have learned? What do you think they could do?
Well, just as I mentioned before, ask. If you
it's
don't
going
know,
to waste a lot of time. I'm working. I need to get this done.
Right? Yeah, because it's really if you meet someone with a different, I mean, even for me, when I met like people working with them and they had an Indian accent, I still caught myself a couple of times where I had to guess. I had to guess what they were saying. Yeah, I mean, yes, you can try to guess, but if you don't feel confident in that, I would just ask them again. And really, honestly, that's the thing I would do, because you just really can't. You can't really fake something like that. Yeah, you can try to understand, but you may or may not know. So I really feel like for students who, meet people who have different accents, this will be a very big problem, and it's a very realistic issue. It's going to happen, right? So for all you people watching this, it's going to happen, right?
I think that we can also tie it back to what we just mentioned in the previous episodes. I feel like especially Asian students, they are afraid of asking questions in the classrooms because they were afraid of being deemed as underachieved, or maybe they are not learning fast enough. They are making mistakes. But asking to clarify someone's speech, I don't think showcasing that you are incapable in this language, right? You are just trying to make this communication work. And I think that people understand that, right?
Yes.
If you pretend that you understand and then later it comes like a real mistake. Probably that is the real issue.
That's the issue. I think the issue is just just ask. If you don't know something, ask. I always believe that motto, right? If you don't know, ask. If you don't understand, try to learn it. It doesn't hurt to do that. I think the part that hurts is not trying. That is, to me, is at least you know that you have done what you can to do something. You don't really have to think overgeneralize this anyways, I think for most students, yes, asking is definitely, people would think it's a kind of a shame in Asian culture. But I believe that in the Western culture, I don't believe it to be such an issue. I think people would actually feel kind of appreciated. You're trying to learn their language, you're trying to get to know them. And I think that they wouldn't take offense to something like that.
I think this is a very important lesson.
Yes.
For every English learners to apply English in the real world and maybe in the classroom as well. Because at FUNDAY, for example, we have a lot of teachers from different countries.
That's right.
And sometimes we do receive comments like students don't get what the teacher was saying.
Yes.
But if we just simply apply or just use that strategy like Steve just mentioned, like you can just ask, maybe the teachers will clarify. And I think that teachers will also be kind enough to change the way that they speak a bit to make you understand.
That's right. I mean,
that can also be applied to the real world.
Yes.
Right? Because if a person is trying to make you understand, he or she will try to change.
Right.
Or at least
pretend to change. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think for students, it's definitely, if you guys don't understand, just ask. I think all the teachers are willing to really share, and teachers we're humans too. So
this can also be the same case in the real world, right?
Yes,
so wherever you are interacting with, wherever you are talking to, just ask if you don't understand the way that they speak English.
Right. And this is for all my fans out there. Yeah, I really do think, take it to heart. I think so.
So that will be all for today's episode. I'm CJ.
I'm Steve.
And I will see you
next time. Bye.